I finished a video the other day on the Kybalion, but I didn't do an interpretation of the Kybalion. What I did instead was kind of look at the stylistic nature of this vehicle, the genre of it, and how it contains the nested spiritual teachings, but in a way that is very mystical, very occult sounding. Hi, my name is Dan Paulson and welcome to the channel, and I'll post a link to that video below. So what I attempted to do, or perhaps practiced to doing, was to show how to extract the teaching out of a type of material that is a cult type of material. We're going to find the same teachings in spiritual material, in Buddha and Lao Tzu type material, Christianity, mythologies. We're going to find this template, this self-healing template all over. And that is what the Kybalion contains, with modifications. I will tell you that the Kybalion originated in 1908, but it was supposedly written by 3 initiates, is what it's called. It was pseudonymously written. Nobody knows who the author is, although they figure they have the author figured out. And I agree with them that it was this occultist individual who was heavily into it and had written other material at that time, who owned the bookstore where this first appeared. And it's a little spot on. But there's also a couple of other things in here that I believe are errors that indicate that it's, that it's not the best source material for a spiritual search. There are better material. I like this. I enjoy it, but it's not, it wouldn't be my choice of material to use for a serious spiritual path. The instructions here are difficult to extract. And I don't think it contains all of them. We'll get to that. But the idea of the 3 initiates, author of the book, this book is about teachings that was attributed to somebody named Hermes Trismegistus, thrice born. I'm not going to get into the history of that. That's different material. There's so much out there. But there's thrice born. There is also in Christianity at the time that this is being written a trilogy, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. In a lot of the material, what we learn is that the way our life functions is that consciously, as we have experiences, we decide whether those are good or bad, and we begin to put those away as memories. And that begins to become who and what we are. Depending on the state of those memories, they emerge at some point in time as they're triggered, and were they hurt, painful, those sorts of things, they're going to come out because they were put away and left that way. And that we become this acting out kind of an individual while we're not awake, while we're not aware, while we're not paying attention to ourselves and understanding that we are responding to our programming and that we must stop doing that, let it go, find a way to heal, and that's going to change our life. That those 3 things, the conscious, the subconscious, and everything that is stored away, those 3 things have to be in concert for our life to be happy. When they're not in concert, we're going to have confusions. We're going to want to do one thing while something else is going to trigger and act out. We're going to have all kinds of issues. So this is 3 here. The 3 initiates I would look at as somebody saying, okay, I've got those 3 together. This is a combination of those things that make life better. And I'm only assuming that because that's where it appears elsewhere. Pattern recognition, 3 means that elsewhere. So perhaps that's what the individual was doing here. As I move along in this video, I think I'm going to wander to some larger scope areas that I haven't covered before, from a more universal or a cosmic scale back down to us. I've gone from inside out, and now I want to go from outside in and make those 2 together. But in the meantime, what I want to do is begin interpreting this the way that the Hermeticist or the occultist at that time, and probably today, would still use this kind of language. And okay, let's get into it, and I think we will just see, we'll see how it goes as it unfolds. Chapter 1, the Hermetic Philosophy. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. I think I called that one wrong the other day. The lips of wisdom are closed. So whatever I have to say, or whatever somebody else has to say, whatever this knowledge is it's there. It's available. It is right here. It is in our face. It is, we live it. We just don't understand it. And if we don't understand it, it's closed off to us. Yeah. The lips of wisdom are closed, but nobody can hear it. Nobody can see it as long as they don't have that understanding. Okay. So far, we're not anywhere along the path. It's just telling us that this actually, if you were to follow the hero's journey, this very closely resembles the idea of being selected. It's not quite. In the hero's journey, that is always one of the processes there, that somebody that goes on the hero's journey has been selected somehow, that it's not for everybody, it's just for some people. And this kind of, it doesn't quite go there, but it hints that same way. Let me get into the reading of it, and I'll just, editorialize along the way. From old Egypt have come the fundamental esoteric and occult teachings which have so strongly influenced the philosophies of all races, nations, and peoples for several thousand years. Egypt, the home of the pyramids and the Sphinx, was the birthplace of the hidden wisdom and mystic teachings. From her secret doctrine all nations have borrowed. India, Persia, Chaldea, Media, China, Japan, Assyria, ancient Greece and Rome, and other ancient countries partook liberally of the feast of knowledge which the Hierophants and masters of the land of Isis so freely provided for those who came prepared to partake of the great store of mystic and occult lore which the masterminds of that ancient land had gathered together. All right, sounds like a big meeting place for all the masterminds of the world. True, not, whatever. Doesn't matter. That is setting up the story. It doesn't have to be true. That doesn't teach us anything. It's trying to establish its viability. In ancient Egypt dwelt the great adepts and masters who have never been surpassed, and who seldom have been equaled during the centuries that have taken their processional flight since the days of the great Hermes. In Egypt was located the great lodge of lodges of the mystics. At the doors of her temples entered the neophytes who afterwards, as hierophants, adepts, and masters, traveled to the four corners of the earth, carrying with them the precious knowledge which they were ready, anxious, and willing to pass along to those who were ready to receive the same. And what does that sound like? Plato, Aristotle, schooling centers, and in Christianity, the disciples spread out throughout the land to teach everything. We see components that are from other places as well. All students of the occult recognize the debt that they owe to these venerable masters of that ancient land. But among these great masters of ancient Egypt, there once dwelt one of whom masters hailed as the master of masters. This man, if man indeed he was, dwelt in Egypt in the earliest days. He was known as Hermes Trismegistus. He was the father of the occult wisdom, the founder of astrology, the discoverer of alchemy. The details of his life's story are lost to history owing to the lapse of the years, though several of the ancient countries disputed with each other in their claims to the honor of having furnished his birthplace, and this thousands of years ago. That date of his sojourn in Egypt, and that last, his carnation on this planet, is not known, but it has been fixed at the early days of the oldest dynasties of Egypt, long before the days of Moses. The best authorities regard him as a contemporary of Abraham, and some of the Jewish traditions go so far as to claim that Abraham acquired a portion of his mystic knowledge from Hermes himself. All right, take a look at a couple of things here. First of all, it's just establishing Hermes as the greatest thing. Everybody loves him and respects him. It's just what is being written, though. I'm going to skip the next part and then jump down below. The details of his life story are lost to history. Yeah, we don't have any... All the information's gone. We have the story, but it's all been lost. All the proof is not there anymore. And it even goes on so far as to say that best authorities regard him as a contemporary of Abraham, and some of the Jewish traditions go so far as to claim that Abraham acquired a portion of his mystic knowledge from Hermes himself. I don't know all of Jewish material. There's a lot. And they have a lot of mysticism, but I don't know that they ever mention Hermes. This is just, it sounds like a blatant, I'm going to jump in and say, oh yeah, and by the way, some people even say that he's seeking authority over something else. This is just a claim. It's a statement that anybody would make that wants to claim authority, and there's no evidence to any of it. In fact, this one spot here where it says the best authorities regard him as a contemporary of Abraham, and some of the Jewish traditions go so far as to claim him. This should, when I read stuff like that, I didn't mention this before, but as I read this kind of stuff today, there was a time where I read that and went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I read it today and, boy, it fires the Bravo Sierra filters right off. Who are they? Who are people? If you have an authority that you're trying to claim to back up what you're saying, then who's the authority? This is what you hear today prevalently in, conspiracy theory kind of people that will say they this, they that. What do they think we're supposed to? Or somebody that wants to convince you of something and wants to enhance their authority. And it's like, I'm drawing in things that other people this, other people that. Who are these other people? Yeah, let all of that stuff go. There's one thing in here that got my attention because this is incredibly repetitive. Look at this part right here. And I don't mean repetitive in this material. I mean repetitive across the board in all material. This is going to emerge. What we see is, okay, first of all, astrology in this material and in other teachings that are using astrological symbols. What that is denoting is a cycle, cyclical things happening. Even Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Frequency is cycles. Frequency and cycles are the same thing. Cycles, how often something repeats. Frequency, how frequently it repeats. So those are both terms. Everything moves in waves. And the frequency is how fast, or how small the waves are, or how long they are. And cycles is also how long or how short. Cycles per second, per minute, things like that. Anyway, the cycles can vary, but everything in the universe moves in cycles, whether it is our entire Milky Way galaxy slowly spinning around, or within that, everything that is moving in motion around each other. Everything is in motion, but it's going in circles. And if you could look at that, if you had a circle like this and you put it in motion, it would actually become a sine wave. It doesn't return back to its starting point. It just continues to string on. And that's what's happening. Since time is passing, all of those cycles are getting strung out. And everything moves that way, even our atomic structure. We fit exactly in that. We function in that flow. When we look at life, if you step back from it, you can see cycles and patterns of behavior in not just humans, but in humanity. We're looking here specifically to take care of the individual human behavior, because the individual human behavior, once it's no longer individual and you put it into big groups that think alike, that share the same kind of pain, shame, hurt, or whatever, that grows bigger and it gets worse, and it gets practiced and more people get involved in it. And the frequency of it happening is faster, and the amplitude, the violent nature of it continually gets worse. We're in big trouble. We're not recognizing frequencies and what motivates the frequencies, what drives the behavior. We can't stop the frequency. We have to stop the behavior. But that happens because of hurt people. A hurt civilization, we can't look at people and say, those are bad people. What they are is they're products of a bad something in the background that we've got that we're not looking at. All of the teachings demonstrate that there is a repetitive behavior, that there are cycles happening. Buddha's going to have it in the wheel of a wagon, Lao Tzu the wheel of a cart, the wheel rotation coming around and around based on what is inside. Jesus is going to have a repetition happening by something growing and getting cut down and growing back and getting cut down. And not until you pull it out by the root does it cease. But there's a cycle happening there, something that's repeating. And when we're looking at the stars in the night sky, everything is cycling. Everything is cycling. So a big part of this material is going to be recognizing the cycles of behavior and patterns of behavior. That is going to lead us to finding what is inside of us. So that is incredibly important. And then the other one is alchemy. Alchemy is transmutation. Alchemy is being used as an analog to say changing one state of being to a different state of being. The alchemical process for them was to transmute certain metals into gold or other elements into other elements. They're working at that physically, but really what the inner teaching is in this analogous setup right here is that we're transitioning from the way we used to be to the way we want to be. We're getting rid of our hurt. We're dealing with things and transmuting ourselves from a hurt person to a non-hurt person. We're forgiving. We're going to be doing things like that. The alchemical process here is, yes, that is transmuting our old self into our new self. Again, Jesus would say something like, you can't put a new patch on an old jacket, otherwise it'll be ruined. You can't put new wine into old vessels. You have to make a new wine vessel. That's going to happen through a healing process. So that's what these right here are telling us, that there's cycles and transitions that are going to be happening. But it's nested in that group of, this comes from the greatest original source. There's good stuff in there. He's just trying to say this is the origin. It doesn't matter. I want to talk about that for a minute, because this is where the big global idea comes in. If you look at the universe, let's do that for a minute. Let's just go into our God mode and go way out in space and look at the universe. Planet Earth is a speck way off in the distance somewhere. It's billions of years ago and still emerging and growing and developing. And it takes a while before there's even matter and before matter coalesces into bodies and things happen. There's a lot of time and a lot of things happening before humans even emerge on the scene. And in all of this massive space and energy, only a very small amount of all of the universe is even physical. The rest of it is full of all kinds of energy that we don't interact with. It's all there. We don't constitute very much in this universe, but we are emergent from it. We do come from this universe. If we were to, just imagine here, we go zoom in on planet Earth, we get close to it and we see people down there, and there's some things happening. Some of it we know, and some of it we're going to infer a little bit. Let me get to that part. First of all, what we know is that the human has a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, and we're emotional creatures. We feel, we hurt, we love, we want, we are very emotional. But within the field of humans, we are radiating a very small energy field that we all exist within. And I'm going to say that is where I'm going to infer this. In antiquity, when Hindus are talking about addressing the Akashic records, for example, you can get knowledge and information from somewhere out there. You're looking for this information, like, where does it come from? Maybe you're in a worship situation and you feel an incredible uplifting that you're like, my God, I cannot get that on my own. Maybe you're in a group of protesters and it goes the opposite way and you get angrier than you've ever been before and you do stuff that you would never have done before. Maybe you read somebody's mind, obscure times. These are not common. Gut feelings, instincts, hearing something in your head that turns out to be true and you go, where did that come from? These are not common, and there are people who deny them out of hand and say that's just coincidence. And I think that there's somewhere in between is the reality. I think that some people are more tuned to it, because I think in a group evolving, if we were a species evolving on the planet, and look at the planet, everything lives off of everything else out there. This place is on autopilot. If it was created to live off of itself. This is a terrarium. We don't live without eating other life. And we are emerging from that. We are in that field, and we are functioning within that field. And depending on how we hold memories in our brain, which is an electrochemical brain connected to a central nervous system, which radiates and receives into this environment, into the field of people that we get caught up in, And everybody is a part of that. Everybody is existing within there. And the quality of your flow through that field depends on the nature of your perceptions that are left in place up here. The emotional state of your memories is going to dictate your flow through that field in humanity. That, coupled with where you come from, the regional things, there's other issues that have to come into play. But where you are in life right now, in order to improve your life, you have to improve this. That is what is happening, and that is always the way things are working, regardless of whether it was created or not. That is what is the bottom line functionality that is happening. And the quality of our lives is based on the quality, not the quality of our experiences, but the quality of the manner in which we continue to hold those experiences. They're acting out in the background in this field, in this universe. They're not entities, but in a way they are. We see them sometimes acting out, and you go, oh, I don't know why I do that. Or they always make me mad this way. Maybe we're at a point where we're still justifying our anger outburst or whatnot. We're not recognizing the cyclical pattern behavior, and we haven't done the transmutation. That's what I'm going to suggest is the bigger picture that we have going on, and that is the bottom line truth and reality that we are looking to address, and that is a very difficult thing to do, and that all of the religions and spiritual teachings and whatnot are meant to encode that lesson, to make people figure it out. Back in a day and time when there was no media, stories had to be passed along. And if you pass this along at plain language, it wouldn't go anywhere. Look at the population. But at the same time, I want to be careful and say that the religions are not necessarily bogus. If you were a Christian, for example, and you understood Jesus and you followed the teachings of Jesus, when he says things like, it isn't good enough for you in the eyes of God to love your family and friends because even your enemy does that. You two are the same. You want to be better than love your enemy. Be better than that. Do we see that happening? No. That is a Jesus teaching. It's not necessarily a Christian requirement. If you were to follow Jesus and say, I'm going to do what he says, I'm going to forgive who hurt me, I'm going to become nice and kind, I'm going to become gentle and peaceful, and I believe God is going to grace my life, that is exactly what is going to happen. It will. You will have a grace life, regardless of the source. This field is functioning through a system of emotional connection and conviction and belief. And that is the bottom line, everything. That's why you don't name it anything. If you give it a name, if you call that Christianity holds that in there. Don't call it Christianity. People won't want it. Even Christians hear it and go, oh, that's not what Jesus teaches. No, leave that. You can't call it anything. No, it's its own thing. Anyway, okay, so let me move on. As the years rolled by after his passing from this plane of life, traditional recording was that he lived 300 years in the flesh. The Egyptians deified Hermes and made him one of their gods. So right there we see Hermes became a god at that time. Yeah, interesting. See some kind of holes in this story? I thought he was a god to begin with. Showed up and knew everything, and anyway, okay, I guess the Egyptians simply adopted him, perhaps, and made him one of their gods under the name of Thoth. Years after, the people of ancient Greece also made him one of their many gods, calling him Hermes, the god of wisdom. The Egyptians revered his memory for many centuries, yes, tens of centuries, calling him the scribe of the gods, and bestowing upon him, distinctively, his ancient title, Trismegistus, which means the thrice great, the great, the greatest great, etc. In all the ancient lands, the name of Hermes Trismegistus was revered, the name being synonymous with the fountain of wisdom. Okay, a pattern that I find is that in religions and mythical type work, and I'm by religions I mean outward-looking deity functioning belief systems. Buddhism and Taoism are more philosophies to me. They don't do this, but The other ones all qualify themselves as being the point of origin. This is the original information right here. Everything else flows from this. Nobody's going to write a teaching and send it out there saying this is somewhere downstream. They're going to either interpret something from antiquity to the best of their ability, like I'm doing, and saying, here's what I think that they were trying to tell us. The other option is to just write it in your own way and then try to claim it somehow ahead of... how would I do this here? So far what we have is the Kybalion claiming to be a deciphered interpretation of the emerald tablets of Thoth, and we have this claim that it originated before everything else, and that all of the other religions, even perhaps Abraham, learned from the great master. So it has put itself as the beginning of everything. And if I wanted to make up something later on, I might say, on a planet far away, light centuries ago, when so-and-so was existing as a god, and they taught Hermes and all of the other gods who were then sent out unknowns to each other. You know, we've just backed up the whole send it out and spread it thing another layer. That's a pretty easy thing to do. It's a pretty easy thing to write. My story is not true. I could write it as if it was. Would it matter? In the spiritual search, it doesn't. It doesn't contain any information that helps you heal yourself. It's a fun... It's a verbal game. It's a fun thing to play with. It has information in there, but there's a lot of superfluous stuff in there too. So honestly, I see a blend of two things going on here. Number one, a material that is kind of short and compact that doesn't go into all of the religious conceptual ideas of how to carry it. It's telling you, instead of doing all that, it's frequency, it's mental, it's going right to cut to the chase. It's still going to obfuscate it, I can promise you that. So when it does do that, it is acting like Taoism or Buddhism by cutting to the chase. But in the beginning, it tries to qualify itself as the original material, which is a religious thing to do. Taoism and Buddhism don't do that. So it actually has elements of both styles of religions added into it. Both the, Anyway, you get the idea. There's another reason, though. There's an important reason for Hermes to be there. This is the real important reason. The setup is clever. Look how I kind of made it a snickering thing to call Hermes this person in here. But here's how a hero's journey works if you're taking it into the spiritual realm, playing it out in your psyche and trying to use it for healing, is that you become the character of the story. Let me say first for a second, this is not a real fast description. I'm not going to apologize for that. It's kind of thick material. If you're interested, you got to listen and so let me talk it through. I'm going to grab an example, though. A myth maybe people will know, and I think it's comfortable to grab it. Greek. If you're familiar with the Jason and the Argonaut story, the search of the Golden Fleece. And I won't go through the whole thing. I'm going to do a video on it later. But there are some elements in the hero's journey that are in there. First of all, we have Jason going through a selection process as his father's land is being taken over by an evil king, which is going to be signifying you living your life and losing kind of control of yourself. That the person who is going to eventually get that land back has to be hidden away. They're going to be selected. So we see that Jason gets hidden away. He gets saved. His other siblings are killed. That element is in there. I'm going to jump ahead and say that there's another point where he's grabbing up all of the 40 Argonauts to sail. The 40 Argonauts are Greek gods. And if you look at what those gods are, what you'll find that they're doing is they're saying these are 40 elements of human characteristics, qualities that you're taking with you as you're going into your psyche. These are the things that you're going to be using to clean house, to, in this case, defeat your demons, slay your dragons. And as that happens, the first thing they do is there's a couple of options here. I'm going to use the original author's one, the Island of Stinky Women. All of his men, they stop there before the journey begins. And his men are all getting involved in these relationships with these stinky women who have gotten rid of their husbands. And you look at it and go, well, why would you do that? That's a goofy thing to write. It represents something. In other material, we find that there are offspring somehow denoted that is what happens with Adam and Eve. Eve goes off and does something wrong and gets them kicked out of the Garden of Eden as a result. Eve is being represented by the subconscious, though, who picks up something that at first you didn't have that, now you have that, and now a decay is beginning. What's happening is that they are stuck here. His old characteristics are not ready to move on yet. Finally, Hercules says, you guys got to go. Hercules is the old self. Hercules is that, and not an evil person, but a person that sowed his wild oats. That's represented as our earlier life when we're not in charge of things and we're just doing crazy stuff and we're not paying attention. We've now woken up. We're going on the hero's journey. We become Jason. We go in. We're doing this. And the first thing we have to do is leave this island behind. So this signifies leaving the past. And then the first thing they do is then sail through the clashing rocks, which is an analog for going into the subconscious mind. You have now entered the doorway into another world. In his case, they're going to sail across the world, and it becomes other elements and other stories. And if you are familiar with that from television, the island of stinky women is not there. There was a different author from Greece that released the story with a variation. They must have thought the same thing. Stinky women, we're taking that out. But this is perfect because what they've done is provided a different analog in place so we can see what they're doing very directly. In the version, if you were to watch it on television, instead they're looking for supplies. They're having a difficult time getting underway. They're not quite ready to go. They stop in an island to get some things, and while they're there, they discover that it has the old Greek gods, the ones, the past, in this case, again, it's representing old self, your old characteristics. What drove your life before you got to the point where you said, I'm making changes. I'm going to leave my past behind. But what happens when they try to leave Thanos, I believe it was. Anyway, I won't get into the details of that because I don't remember them. But Hercules, that part of you, tries to grab something and take it with them. So here we have an example of part of you trying to take something from the past and bring it with you. And then what happens is that the past wipes them out. It doesn't let them sail. It destroys the ship. The god comes back alive and they have to wipe it out. It's a big fun adventure. But what we're getting is the same indication here. The analog is different, but it's representing leaving our past behind. We could see that same structure if we became Moses. And we're trying to leave our past, the prison of our past, Pharaoh, who says, yes, you can go. And then we go, but then comes after us with an army. We're struggling to leave our past behind. And then what happens at the last minute, the sea is parted and they go through and it goes behind the clashing rocks. We're seeing the same elements. If you don't look at the story, and you look at what it is accomplishing, if it plays out in your psyche, after decoding those analogs and making them parts of what the psyche actually is, they become the same thing. This is about leaving your past behind, the difficulty of it, going into your subconscious mind. And then I'm not going to get into those stories further because I don't want to get off track, but that is what Hermes is going to be. Let me describe this a little bit better. How this is going to work as we get underway on each one of these is those characters are a little bit more important than just you become that person. They're a guide. They're leading. It is there's the parts of the human psyche. We have the conscious, the subconscious, but there's a part of us, superconscious, separated self, higher self, upper self. It's that part of you that if you step outside of yourself and look at yourself from a distance and wonder, what is my problem down there? It's that person right there. This person who is not attached to your physical self and your conscious and your subconscious self. It exists somehow outside of that. And most people can find that within them. Practice Practice being that person. That's your higher self. That's what you need to do. And that is what this person is going to be. If you went to the Bhagavad Gita and you're getting ready to go do battle to go get your land back from your family, your old family, it's the same story. And Arjuna and Krishna are riding the chariot up and down the line, surveying what to do before going in. And he's told, it's up to you to do this. I, as your God and your guide, can go along to help you and advise you, but you have to make all of the choices. We're going to find that is the element that is happening in these. Hermes is going to be that part of us that's saying, here's what you must do, here's what you must do. This is going to represent that higher part of us talking to our conscious and our subconscious part to affect the healing. So that's a very important thing to know about all of these stories. So at any rate, they're making it sound like for the physical part or the carrier part that Hermes existed. He was this great person. He's above all. Everything emerged from him. All of that is what is being portrayed in here. And again, it is part of what makes this become popular and carry through the population of people who don't understand what's inside of it. It sounds mysterious and crazy, and people that hear you understanding it at times will get angry at you for picking it apart like that. In fact, as I'm getting ready to do these videos and I'm kind of searching on my own and looking through YouTube videos and seeing what other people are doing, what they have got going on, and trying to link some of the factual parts together. I'm not a historian with this stuff. I'm a philosopher with this stuff. I find channels with people that treat this as if it is absolute reality, that inner part, they don't see it. But by the tens or hundreds of thousands, people will be trying to link Hermes to Atlantis and where Atlantis could really be. And it'll occupy people, many people. That's how it works. The inside's always there. The understanding is always there, right there. Outward, that is going to continue to grow. People will keep finding things, but what they're finding is what they're creating. And sadly, in the groups, Hermetics are like anybody. They've got really militant people in there sometimes. It's a fun story and keep people busy. There's nothing wrong with it. It isn't real, but I mean, who am I to say? I think for me, what gives me confidence at some point is in thinking that I'm right is realizing that we're not looking at different religions and trying to find the right one versus the wrong ones, that you're sitting back and realizing there is something hidden in each one of them that is the same thing. There's a commonality there that we're standing too close. We can't see it. We have to step back from it to see it. Even to this day, we use the term Hermetic in the sense of secret, sealed so that nothing can escape, etc., and this by reason of the fact that the followers of Hermes always observed the principle of secrecy in their teachings. They did not believe in casting pearls before swine, but rather held to the teaching, milk for babes, meat for strong men, both of which maxims are familiar to readers of the Christian scriptures, but both of which have been used by the Egyptians for centuries before the Christian era. Yeah, everybody uses this. It goes before the Egyptians, actually. Everybody that claims being first, yeah, we know their claims. You step back far enough and you see it, that nobody is first. They're not inside the box. They're fighting over who's prettier on the outside. In fact, to me, this is the most logical reason for what I see now. That patterns, all that stuff is a part of the cosmos. We emerge from that. So the patterns are there, and we're a part of those patterns. And maybe at first we don't know that, but we are a part of those patterns. At some point in time, we are a very hurt species because we're animals, and we're doing all kinds of hurtful things to each other, eating each other, killing each other, having our way with each other, abusing each other in all manner of ways. How do I know? We still do that today. Is a part of our behavior. Not everyone, but it's a part of our culture. You can see it. And you can see where it is that people don't admit to it. But they act out anyway. So it's a big issue. But along the way, people back then who were as intelligent as we are, but had more time on their hands, were able to observe the patterns. They were able to watch and go, boy, this is something that happens again and again. They had time. They paid attention. It's still visible. It's still there. Nothing has changed. Who is first? Who claims this is whoever figures it out and says, yeah, here it is. And then what they're trying to claim first for is for the outward looking carrier. That's where the masses get a hold of it and carry it. The inner teaching would not go far. Wow. How arrogant does that sound? That's what it looks like to me. And that it just kept building into a bunch of different vehicles that way. And here we are today looking at it going, psh, hey, we got this. That's kind of what I see. Casting pearls before the swine. So this is basically saying that you keep this secret. You don't spread it around. And I find that all over the place. And I've questioned myself posting videos on it. And I realize, you know what, you're not knocking on doors teaching people. You're just putting it up here. This is my way of making a book. It's here if people want to look, and if they don't, it's okay. So I don't think it's like a problem doing this. In fact, as I think about it, I believe it's really the right thing to do. Have it here, have it out there, that this knowledge is out there. There's a time long ago where they didn't have this kind of access. Some little shepherd kid is waiting 6 years for some master to come by. You're looking for an answer. How soon does it come by? What do you get? What do we have? We have access to the world. We can get anywhere. I've been to places and learned things that I never would have if it was thousands of years ago. Yeah, no, this should be here. This is a part of, it's a part of reality. It's a part of humanity. And we just have to recognize that the outer looking parts are the tribal parts, and the inner looking part is the global understanding. It is secret, yeah. And the whole milk for babes, meat for strong men, I don't recognize that from the Bible, although Solomon's dainty meats comes to mind. You want to eat good stuff, not bad stuff. You're consuming spiritually. You want to have the good material. The whole milk for babes, meat for strong men would be the lack of understanding and the shallow understanding for most people, and the inner one for men. And that, I don't like those analogies. Those are horrible words. I don't like them. It can actually, it creates ego issues. Yeah, that's a poor choice of it. It should say something like, what did Jesus say? Many are called, few are chosen. Many stand outside the narrow gate where only the solitary will pass. There are other ways of conveying that there is something more solid in here for those rare people than saying, men and milk and babes. And yeah, that's an analogous way of putting it, but you can see that it can have some mental implications that wrap up a person's ego. There could be other ways of describing that would be preferable. But this was written in 1908 by an individual, and it was a fine thing at their time. And this policy of careful dissemination of the truth has always characterized the Hermetics. Even unto the present day, the Hermetic teachings are to be found in all lands, among all religions, but never identified with a particular country nor with any particular religious sect. See, right there, he just said the same thing that Lao Tzu said. Don't name it. Don't associate it with any sect. However, then he tries to call it Hermetic philosophy. So he says don't call it anything, but then he calls it what he wants to. So it's not Hermetic either. It's that bottom line reality, that cosmic whatever we talked about earlier. That's what it is. It's just the way the universe and we work within it. I don't know if it has a name. I'm sure it does, but I'm looking at it from just an observer, I guess. Anyway, so there you have that one. And then this because of the warning of the ancient teachers against allowing the secret doctrine to become crystallized into a creed. The wisdom of this caution is apparent to all students of history. The ancient occultism of India and Persia degenerated and was largely lost, owing to the fact that the teachers became priests and so mixed theology with the philosophy. The results being that the occultism of India and Persia has been gradually lost amidst the mass of religious superstition, cults, creeds, and gods. So it was with ancient Greece and Rome. So it was with the Hermetic teachings of the Gnostics and early Christians, which were lost at the time of Constantine, whose iron hand smothered philosophy with a blanket of theology, losing to the Christian church that which was its very essence and spirit, and causing it to grope throughout several centuries before it found the way back to its ancient faith. The indications apparent to all careful observers in this 20th century being that the church is now struggling to get back to its ancient mystic teachings. Yeah, I think we understand this. He's saying that there's a secret teaching in here that's been given to people, and people turn it into religions, and that trashes it. And the religions turn farther and farther away from the teaching. And yeah, that's what it says. And that's right. But there were always a few faithful souls who kept alive the flame, tending it carefully and not allowing its light to become extinguished. And thanks to these staunch hearts and fearless minds, we have the truth still with us. But it is not found in books to any great extent. It has been passed along from master to student, from initiate to hierophant, from lip to ear. When it was written down at all, its meaning was veiled in terms of alchemy and astrology, so that only those possessing the key could read it right. This was made necessary in order to avoid persecutions of the theologians of the Middle Ages who fought the secret doctrine with fire and sword, stake, giblet, and cross. Yeah, this is some... there's a little bit of truth in this egoic rant. Kind of. It's another thing. There are a few faithful souls who have kept this alive, passed from ear to ear. I don't know that that is the case. Maybe. I'm sure that there are people who know this. Maybe in secret societies. I don't know. I've never been a Mason or anything like that. I don't know what kind of knowledge they would pass along. It would have to be this. This is the only thing that's important. If you were an alien living 20 light years away and your physical laws were the same as ours, and you evolved and emerged on a planet where people ate each other, you would have these same laws. This is how the bottom line, everybody in the physical realm would have to function in order to get along. You have to get inside. We can't be outside of this stuff. Faithful souls. I would be the one probably down here. When it was written down at all, its meaning was veiled in terms of alchemy and astrology, so that only those possessing the key could read it right. That's what I have. I have the key. I don't have the mystical stuff. I just realized you turn it in. This is a way of playing the verse, playing it out in your psyche. You take the lesson instead of saying, I'm going to read it face value and take it to the physical world. You put it in your psyche and say, I have to assign all the parts of this to somewhere in my psyche. And once they're in the right place, it fits and it shows me what to do. It's an interactive process. That's the key. And it's visible. And it's not heroic. It's not magical. It's not assigned. It's not selected. It's, holy crap, look what I found. Had the right experiences in life and anybody could find this. Even to this day, there will be found but few reliable books on the Hermetic philosophy, although there are countless references to it in many books written on various phases of occultism, and yet the Hermetic philosophy is the only master key which will open all the doors of the occult teachings. So what he's suggesting is that what I am talking about, this bottom line thing, is Hermetic, because this would unlock everything. It does. It does. Well, we'll see as we get in here. In the early days, there was a compilation of certain basic Hermetic doctrines passed on from teacher to student, which was known as the Kybalion, the exact significance and meaning of the terms having been lost for several centuries. This teaching, however, is known to many to whom it has descended from mouth to ear, on and on throughout the centuries. Its precepts have never been written down or printed. So far as we know, it was merely a collection of maxims, axioms, and precepts which were non-understandable to outsiders, but which were readily understood by students after the axioms, maxims, and precepts had been explained and exemplified by the Hermetic initiates to the neophytes. Very specifically, I want to look at these terms Maxim, Axiom, and Precepts. Maxim is a short, pithy statement expressing a general rule or rule of conduct. An example they have is like something, an action speaks louder than words or something like that. So it's letting you know right there that we're going to be using kind of a play on words that's happening here. Axiom, a statement or proposition which is regarded as being established, accepted, or evidently true. That would have to be things like cause and effect and things like that. Understanding that there are certain things happening. You must accept that that is happening. And then precepts, a general rule intended to regulate behavior or thought. So this is kind of guiding along the path. That's what I get out of that right there. In the rest of it, we can let it go. It is, these teachings really constituted the basic principles of the art of Hermetic Alchemy, which, contrary to the general belief, dealt in the mastery of mental forces rather than material elements. Mental forces, not material. That's important. That's always the case. That's what we can control. That's how we manipulate our lives through the ways that we think. The art of Hermetic Alchemy, which, contrary to the general belief, dealt in the mastery of mental forces rather than material elements, the transmutation of one kind of mental vibrations into others instead of the changing of one kind of metal into another. The legends of this philosopher's stone, which would turn base metal into gold, was an allegory relating to Hermetic philosophy, readily understood by all students of true Hermeticism. In this little book, of which this is the first lesson, we invite our students to examine into the Hermetic teachings as set forth in the Kybalion and as explained by ourselves, humble students of the teachings who, while bearing the title of initiates, are still students at the feet of Hermes, the Master. We hereby give you many of the maxims, axioms, and precepts of the Kybalion, accompanied by explanations and illustrations which we deem likely to render the teachings more easily comprehended in the modern student, particularly as the original text is purposefully veiled in obscure terms. The original terms, axiom, and precepts of the Kybalion are printed herein in quotational marks, the proper credit being given. Our own work is printed in the regular way in the body of the work. We trust that the many students to whom we now offer this little work will derive as much benefit from the study of its pages as have the many who have gone on before, trading the same path to mastery throughout the centuries that have passed since the times of Hermes Trismegistus, the Master of Masters, the Great, in the words of the Kybalion. Where fall the footsteps of the Master? The ears of those ready for his teaching open wide. This is saying wherever the Master walks, the ears of those ready for the teaching open wide. It's saying the same thing. If you're ready, it's there. The material is there. You're not looking for a master. The master is you. The master is the material. The master is this information. People that a master would be somebody who simply tells you what you have to do. You have to take the tools and go into your own mind, so there is nobody that's going to lead you on an outward path. If you're doing that, you're following religion. That's not the spiritual path inward. That's a religious path looking outward. When the ears of the student are ready to hear, then cometh the lips to fill them with wisdom. So it's almost like he's, or whoever the author is here, is in a number of different ways is trying to say that same thing. So that according to the teachings, the passage of this book to those ready for the instructions will attract the attention of such as are prepared to receive the teaching. And likewise, when the pupil is ready to receive the truth, then will this little book come to him or her. Such is the law. The Hermetic principle of cause and effect and its aspect of the laws of attraction will bring lips and ear together, pupil and book in company. So mote it be. There's some truth to this. There is seek and you will find, knock and it will be opened. If you're looking for this material, you'll find it. If you are a person that's ready to turn inward and make that path that's gone, oh my God, I'm at wit's end. I'm finished. I'm turning inward. I'm done. I'm going to go find what I need to do. You'll find what you need to do. It's going to emerge in the form of a book or books or videos or something somehow, somewhere that it's going to show up. And he's saying here that he's going to, what they're saying is that the three initiates are going to improve the understanding of these comments that are made in the Kybalion, or in the Hermetic works from Hermes Trismegistus and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. This is meant to help understand. This is somebody saying, here, I'm going to help you understand what that is. So, okay, I think that chapter in a nutshell then is basically spending a lot of time trying to say we are the first. Everything else out there originated from us. The Hermetical teachings are the actual true origin teachings that stretch back a long ways. Who cares? We're looking for the teaching. We want to interact with it. We don't care who originated it if it's for us. If we're caring about who originated it, then we're worshiping something external. We're not looking internal. Okay, that emerges from there. Also, the idea that there are going to be cycles and a transformation that has to take place. That's viable information. That's going to come about. It also goes on to tell us it's going to be simpler to understand, that they're going to try to put it in more plain language, and that it will not be a teaching that has been converted into a religious dogma that is on the outside as a carrier. That this is intended to be plain language, kind of cut to the chase, straight up, here it comes. That's the same kind of claim we would get from, no, that's the same kind of thing we would find in material from Lao Tzu or the Buddha, except that they don't make those claims. This here is actually going and trying to tell you ahead of time that this is going to simplify what all of those other things are telling you. It's going to show you how to bring them all together. That it's a secret teaching, not many people are going to do it, and that yeah, that's pretty much it. The next chapter starts, and it starts getting into the more meat of it. We've done the introduction. That first chapter was really just setting this up. You can see what's there. There's a little bit of information in there that's setting it up, but it's also selling it as a product. It is viable information, but it's doing the same thing that religions do. It's saying we are number one, only us, only us. That's a part of what you see in multiple places. It's not unique. It's not unique here. You don't find it everywhere, though. Again, you don't find it in Taoism or Buddhism. They just say, here it is. If you believe it, I mean, if you want to heal yourself, here's the material. Take it, go. They also are not as popular. When you look at things like this, you realize, wow, this really has a lot of weird stuff to it. It has the same answers in there, but it works with the population. The population doesn't look inward. The population looks outward at all kinds of fun things. And this is another method. This is for the people who think in different ways, the occult type mentality. But it is simply another means of carrying that same inner healing path. I'm going to wrap this video up right now. I'll tell you, I didn't have a plan, and I wasn't going to do anything with this material. But somehow I just kind of fell into it, and I find myself just naturally falling back into my old habits of just starting to go through the material and pick it apart, analyze it, look at it, see where it comes from, understand it. The more you see something that is mysterious, the more you look at it and pick it apart and analyze it, the more you go, it's not mysterious. I see what's going on. That happens in the mind too, when we've got things in there that we've got hidden away and we're scared of them and we don't want to deal with them. We need to illuminate them. All of the things that I do is like, okay, I want to understand this stuff. I want to interact with it. I want to pick it apart. There's something real here. The magical, mystical part is the carrier. The religious part, all of that are the carriers. Strip all that away and find the nitty-gritty. And what that nitty-gritty is, I've covered before, but I'll extract it from here. I'll go ahead and go through this. I'm going to approach the material as somebody who's, well, in the same way I've approached previous material. And I know that this is still kind of low-interest stuff. The people that like this material don't want to hear my interpretation. This is for somebody different. This is a smaller group of people. And there are bigger things to go after. Religions, big, powerful entities that are off course. But I need to have my act together before I do that, and I'm still learning this. If you watch, as you follow along, you see I'm still kind of figuring this out as I go. And the interaction in making the videos and going through the material and just verbalizing it, looking at it, thinking about it. I will sit and analyze something and go, okay, I've got it, make a video. And then the next day I review what I did and went, oh, wait a minute, I got a better idea. I delete that and update it. You'll see a lot of jumpiness in my videos sometimes where it seems like not a very good flow. That's where I chunked in a piece. And no, it's not a good flow. It's just me sitting here rambling on at the camera. So trying to figure it out. I don't use scripts or anything. I just grab the book, and that actually is what guides me. I hope it works out. Hope you got something out of this. Right now it's a setup. The 7 principles are ahead. What is actually the teaching that we need? We haven't even started it, really. So that's what I'll go ahead and do next. In the meantime, love one another, and I'll see you in the next video.